Congratulations! You've just landed one of the most glamorous jobs in all of Japan. One day, wealthy men will compete for a chance to sit in the same room as you. People will admire your silk kimonos, envy your perfect makeup, and whisper about how elegant and mysterious geishas are. There's just one tiny problem. You're 10 years old, and your first assignment is scrubbing human waste out of a wooden toilet. Welcome to geisha training. You thought becoming a geisha meant beautiful dances, expensive gifts, and strolling through Kyoto looking like a celebrity from another era. Unfortunately, before you learn how to hold a fan gracefully, you'll learn how to clean floors until your knees ache. The woman showing you around the okiya, the geisha house you'll now call home, doesn't smile once. She points at a bucket, then the hallway, then the toilets. Apparently, elegance starts with plumbing. You glance around, expecting someone to tell you this is all part of an initiation prank. Nobody does. Instead, older apprentices walk past you without a second glance. One of them pauses just long enough to look you up and down. "You'll quit within a month," she says. Then she keeps walking. Great. You've been here less than an hour, and you've already made your first enemy. That night, curled up on unfamiliar bedding, you think about home, about your mother's cooking, about the way your family laughed together, about how this morning you thought your biggest problem was learning a few dance steps. Now you're wondering if you made the biggest mistake of your life. Unfortunately, tomorrow is going to be much, much worse.
You wake up before sunrise because apparently geisha training runs on the same schedule as medieval torture. The woman in charge of the okiya doesn't bother learning your name right away. To her, you're not a future geisha. You're an extra pair of hands that can carry water, sweep hallways, and scrub things nobody else wants to touch. By breakfast, you've already cleaned floors, emptied waste buckets, and been yelled at twice. You haven't even finished your first bowl of rice. The glamorous life is off to a fantastic start. Still, you tell yourself this is temporary. Surely, if you work hard enough, the real training will begin. The silk kimonos, the graceful dances, the elegant tea houses, the life everyone back home imagined when they heard the word geisha. Unfortunately, before you can become art, you have to become invisible. You quickly discover that the older apprentices aren't exactly thrilled to see you, especially one of them. She's beautiful, talented, and only a few years away from becoming a full geisha. She also looks at you the way people look at a mosquito buzzing around their bedroom at 3 in the morning. "You missed a spot," she says, pointing at a perfectly clean floor. You kneel down and scrub it again. Too slow. You move faster. Careless. You start over. No matter what you do, it's wrong. You begin to wonder if she actually hates you. Then you realize something worse. She probably does. Because every girl in this house is competing for attention, training, and a future that isn't guaranteed. And every new apprentice means one more rival. Congratulations. You thought you'd entered a sisterhood. You accidentally joined a reality show where everyone wears silk and judges you silently. At night, when everyone else finally falls asleep, homesickness creeps in. You think about your mother's voice, about familiar streets, about the comfort of knowing exactly where you belonged. You wonder if your family misses you. You wonder if they're proud of you. You wonder if they regret sending you here. Then another thought slips into your mind. What if you leave? The idea grows stronger every day. You could pack your things, walk out the front door, go home. Simple, right? So one afternoon you finally ask an older apprentice how people leave the okiya. She stares at you, then laughs. Actually laughs. You think you can just leave. That's when you learn about the debt. The food you've eaten, the clothes you've worn, the training you'll receive, the makeup, the lessons, the kimono you'll eventually wear. None of it is free. Every yen is carefully recorded. every expense added to your name. And suddenly, the beautiful house that once looked so magical feels different. The doors haven't changed, the hallways haven't changed, but somehow, they don't feel quite as open as they did before, because for the first time since arriving, you understand something terrifying. You weren't just brought here to learn, you were brought here owing more money than a child like you could ever imagine repaying. And tomorrow your actual geisha lessons begin, which would be wonderful news if they didn't hurt so much.
Which brings us to your first official geisha lesson. You expected elegance. You expected soft music drifting through paper doors while a kind teacher patiently guided you through graceful movements. Instead, your instructor takes one look at you and says, "Again, you haven't even done anything yet. Welcome to the arts." The first thing you learn is that making something look effortless requires an unreasonable amount of suffering. You practice walking. Not normal walking, geisha walking. Small steps, straight posture, controlled movements. Too fast? Again. Too slow? Again. Shoulders uneven? Again. Smile looks forced? Again. By the end of the lesson, your legs ache so badly that sitting down feels like winning the lottery. Then come the dance lessons. You watch older apprentices glide across the room as if they were born knowing exactly where to place their hands and feet. Meanwhile, you accidentally step on your own kimono and nearly introduce your face to the floor. The senior apprentice, who already dislikes you, lets out the tiniest laugh. You hear it. Of course you hear it. Wonderful. Now humiliation is part of the curriculum. And just when you think things can't possibly get more complicated, someone places a shamisen in your hands, a traditional 3-string instrument. Elegant, beautiful, completely determined to ruin your confidence. Your fingers hurt, you miss notes, the instructor closes their eyes like they're praying for patience. Again. You start to suspect that the entire geisha education system runs on 2 things, rice and disappointment. Weeks pass, then months. Slowly, something changes. You stop tripping over your kimono, you remember the dance steps, your shamisen no longer sounds like a cat arguing with a door. For the first time since arriving at the okiya, you feel a tiny spark of pride. Maybe you're actually getting better. Which is exactly when geisha training decides to humble you again. Because now it's time to discuss your hair. You imagined beautiful hairstyles decorated with elegant ornaments. And yes, they are beautiful. They are also an elaborate method of psychological warfare.
Your hair is pulled tightly into place, every strand arranged with painful precision. You sit perfectly still while stylists work around you. Hours pass. Your scalp throbs. You smile anyway, because elegance apparently requires pretending you're not one inconvenience away from crying. Then you receive another piece of wonderful news. You're expected to keep the hairstyle intact for days. Do you know what that means? You don't sleep normally anymore. Instead of resting your head on a soft pillow like every reasonable person on earth, you sleep using a small wooden neck support designed to protect your hair. The first night, you stare at it. Surely this is a joke. It isn't. You attempt to sleep. Your neck hurts. Your back hurts. Your patience disappears completely. At some point around 3 in the morning, you seriously consider shaving your head and becoming a farmer.
Unfortunately, debt has opinions about your career choices. The next morning, exhausted and irritable, you shuffle into the training room only to discover the senior apprentice watching you. "You look terrible," she says. You blink at her. "You try sleeping on a piece of wood," you mutter under your breath. For the first time since you've met her, she almost smiles. Almost. And that's when you realize something surprising. Maybe the girls around you aren't cruel because they enjoy it. Maybe they're exhausted too. Maybe they were once children who arrived at the okiya believing in silk kimonos and glamorous evenings, only to discover blistered feet, aching necks, impossible expectations, and the constant fear of failure. Maybe all of you are just trying to survive the same beautiful nightmare.
Your shamisen stops sounding like a household emergency. You learn exactly how deeply to bow, when to laugh, how to pour tea without spilling a single drop, and how to make guests feel like they're the most fascinating people you've ever met, even when they're explaining tax policies for 45 minutes. You discover that being a geisha isn't just about beauty, it's performance, observation, memory. You remember who prefers extra sugar, who likes certain songs, who appreciates jokes, who hates being interrupted. You're part artist, part entertainer, part therapist, and occasionally part actress pretending not to be exhausted. Then one morning, the impossible happens. You're told it's time. Your debut. The moment you've imagined since arriving at the Okiya. The moment that once seemed so glamorous. Other girls would have squealed with excitement. You mostly feel nauseous. Women bustle around you adjusting your kimono, applying makeup, fixing details only they can notice. Layer after layer transforms your reflection into someone almost unrecognizable. You stare into the mirror. White makeup, perfectly arranged hair, elegant silk. For a moment,
You understand why people romanticize this life. You look beautiful. Then someone tightens part of your outfit so aggressively that you briefly forget your own name. Never mind. Reality has returned. As you step into the tea house, conversations soften. Eyes turn towards you. Guests smile. Some look impressed, others curious. You glide across polished floors exactly as you were taught. You pour tea. You perform. You laugh at jokes you've heard 3 times already. You hide every trace of nervousness behind practiced grace. And somehow, you do it. You survive your first evening. Walking back to the Okiya that night, exhaustion settles into your bones, but beneath it sits something unexpected. Pride. You remember the little girl crying into unfamiliar bedding, the girl who couldn't dance, who couldn't play shamisen, who cleaned toilets wondering if she'd made the biggest mistake of her life. And now, people applaud when you perform. You earned that. No one can take away the hours of practice hidden beneath your elegant smile. Unfortunately, success introduces a brand new problem. People start paying attention to you, and attention is dangerous. The senior apprentice who once dismissed you now watches quietly from across rooms. Some girls become friendlier, others become colder. Compliments begin sounding suspiciously like insults. You were lucky. You only did well because the guests were generous. I suppose some people have natural charm. You quickly learn that jealousy wears very expensive kimonos. The outside world doesn't help.
Guests whisper about geisha as if they're magical creatures. Men describe your life as effortless, romantic, luxurious. You must be so lucky, one of them says. Lucky. You smile politely while thinking about the years of training, the aching legs, the sleepless nights balancing your neck on wooden supports, the tears nobody saw, the debt waiting patiently in account books. People admire the finished painting. Very few care how much it cost to create it. As seasons pass, you become the woman younger girls stare at with wide eyes. They notice your graceful movements, your confidence, your beautiful kimono, and occasionally you'll catch one of them smiling dreamily. I want to be just like you someday. For a second, you don't know what to say, because how do you explain that 2 things can be true at once? That this life gave you skills you never imagined, that you genuinely love music and dance, that you found friendships strong enough to survive impossible circumstances, and also that beauty often demands sacrifice, that elegance has a price, that behind every perfect performance stands a girl who practiced until her feet hurt,
smiled through exhaustion, and learned how to hide homesickness behind painted lips.
Years ago, you thought geishas were simply women in beautiful clothing, but now you know better. They were artists, performers, students, competitors, daughters who missed home, girls who cried in silence, women who built entire worlds from discipline and resilience. Everyone wanted to be the elegant geisha drifting through lantern-lit streets. Nobody wanted to be the frightened child scrubbing toilets on her first night away from home. Nobody wanted the blisters, the pressure, the loneliness, the debt. But maybe that's the strange thing about admiration. People fall in love with the finished masterpiece. They rarely ask what it took to create it. So if you ever find yourself watching a geisha move effortlessly through a room, remember this: the grace wasn't effortless, the smile wasn't accidental, and the beauty everyone admired was built one painful lesson at a time. Because long before she became unforgettable to everyone else, she first had to survive being a little girl who desperately wanted to go home. And maybe that's where most stories about geisha end: the elegant woman gliding through lantern-lit Kyoto.
The perfect makeup, the silk kimono, the applause. Fade to black. Everyone goes home thinking, wow, how beautiful. But real life has an annoying habit of continuing after the credits should have rolled. Because becoming successful doesn't magically transform you into a person who never gets tired. You still wake up before dawn some mornings. You still sit for hours while your appearance is carefully prepared. You still perform even when your head aches. You still smile when you're homesick. You still entertain guests even when grief decides to show up uninvited. And sometimes, late at night, after everyone else has gone to sleep, you catch your reflection in the mirror and wonder something you never dared ask as a child. Who are you underneath all of this? Underneath the powder? Underneath the silk? Underneath the performance? Do you even remember the girl who arrived at the Yokiya years ago? The one who cried herself to sleep because she missed her mother? The one who scrubbed toilets and thought she'd never survive another day? The one who almost ran away? You try to picture her face. Then slowly,
You realize she's still there. She's in the way your hands shake before important performances. She's in the way you comfort younger apprentices after difficult days. She's in the way you secretly slip extra snacks to homesick girls who pretend they're not crying. Because unlike the adults around you once did, you remember exactly how terrifying it feels to be new. One evening, a young apprentice finally asks the question nobody dares say out loud. Was it worth it? You open your mouth, then close it again. Because what kind of answer are you supposed to give? If you say yes, it feels like you're betraying every painful memory that brought you here. If you say no, it feels like you're dismissing the strength it took to survive. So instead, you tell her the truth. It was complicated. You tell her that some nights were magical. The music, the laughter.
Years later, tourists will admire photographs of geisha and describe them as mysterious, elegant, enchanting. People will debate whether geisha had glamorous lives or difficult ones, as if human beings fit neatly into categories, as if someone cannot be both admired and exhausted, celebrated and lonely, graceful and deeply homesick. But you know better, because you lived it. You know that beauty can exist beside sacrifice, that discipline can create art,
that resilience doesn't mean something wasn't painful. You know that surviving doesn't always look dramatic. Sometimes it looks like getting out of bed. Sometimes it looks like trying again after failing. Sometimes it looks like smiling through fear until confidence finally catches up. And sometimes it looks like a little girl holding a cleaning rag in one hand and impossible dreams in the other. People saw the finished version of you, the accomplished geisha, the graceful performer,
the woman who seemed to belong effortlessly beneath lantern light. They didn't see the child who earned every step. But maybe that's why your story matters. Not because it was perfect, not because it was tragic, but because it was human. Because behind every beautiful performance stood someone who doubted herself, someone who missed home, someone who wanted to quit, someone who kept going anyway. Everyone wanted to be the geisha. Very few wanted to become her. And maybe that's the part history forgets most often. The masterpiece was never the silk kimono. It was the girl underneath it. The one who arrived frightened, the one who stumbled, the one who cried, the one who learned, the one who survived. And somehow, despite everything she lost along the way, she still found a way to dance.